At the Society for Neuroscience Congress in November 2005, the Dalai Lama stated that if it was possible to become free of negative emotions by riskless implementation of an electrode, without impairing intelligence and the critical mind, I would be the first patient. That's exactly what James Olds and Peter Milner did in 1954. They implanted electrodes into rats' brains and allowed them to self-stimulate by pressing a lever. They then measured the frequency of stimulation as a function of time and found that electrical stimulation at a certain location was rewarding. This set the anatomical foundation for experiments in rewards and punishment circuits. At around 1985, the circuit was mapped out. It was most sensitive at the lateral and posterior hypothalamic and the ventral tegmental levels. With further studies, the interconnectedness of certain structures in the brain that were activated during rewarding events became evident. The ventral tegmental area, the nucleus accumbens, the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, and the hippocampus are the major components of the dopaminergic mesolimbic pathway. The main neurotransmitters responsible for activity in this pathway are dopamine, GABA, and glutamate. The prefrontal cortex and the amygdala send excitatory signals to the ventral tegmental area in the form of glutamate. When stimulated, the activity of the dopaminergic and GABAergic neurons in the VTA increases and sends signals to the nucleus accumbens and the hippocampus, as well as to the prefrontal cortex. So why have a reward system in the first place? Well, this is very important when it comes to engaging in rewarding behaviors and avoiding the unpleasant ones. The two main activators of the system are food and sex, the evolutionarily essential. Scientists began to use this to try to explain all types of different concepts. But the most studied so far is drug abuse. Whether acting directly or indirectly, all drugs increase dopamine levels within the nucleus accumbens. Addictive drugs trigger the reward system much in the same way that natural rewards do, except that natural rewards become a valued resource. While drugs become overvalued, and instead of producing a regular amount of motivation to obtain the rewarding item,
Lisa, I want some more.
Drugs end up forming a compulsion. And of course, unlike natural rewards, which are essential for survival and often for health, drugs are detrimental. Let's see how different drugs affect the system.
I'll be with you in a minute.
We'll start with cocaine, a very powerful, very addicting psychostimulant. Some psychostimulants, like cocaine, block the dopamine transporter, preventing the reuptake of dopamine into the neuron, increasing the amount of dopamine in the synaptic cleft. Opiates, like morphine, also have a very distinct effect on the mesolimbic system. Opiates produce the same effect of increasing extracellular dopamine levels in the VTA and the nucleus accumbens, but not by blocking reuptake, but rather they increase the firing rate of dopamine neurons. Amphetamines, or speed, can take the form of attention medicines like Adderall or the much more harmful crystal meth. Amphetamines enter the dopamine neuron through the dopamine transporter and interact with the vesicular monoamine transporter. This interaction causes the reverse transportation of dopamine out of the neuron. There is a genetic predisposition to drug addiction. Different people will have different expression of genes involved in the mesolimbic pathway. That can change how sensitive the individual is towards a particular drug. Some people may find the drug more rewarding than others. That's why some people can use drugs without being addicted. There's hope for addicts. Research funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse has developed a vaccine that will potentially cure a cocaine addiction by blocking it from entering the brain. Here's Dr. David Shurtleff explaining how it works.
It's a brain disorder, and drugs of abuse like cocaine get into the brain very easily. And we've had an extensive research program at the National Institute on Drug Abuse to target those areas of the brain that are affected by drugs like cocaine, and that's an ongoing active research program. But this study by Dr. Crystal and his colleagues at Cornell and at Scripps Institute in California took a different approach to trying to actually block cocaine from actually even getting to the brain. And normally, as I said, cocaine readily gets into the brain. It's a small molecule, and it attacks the reward pathways of the brain, leading to addiction. And so what these researchers were able to do was tap into the natural immune system of our bodies. As you know, we're able to easily fight off infection by developing antibodies to particular viruses. And these researchers actually capitalized on that innate immune system by attaching with covalent linking a cocaine-like structure to this adenovirus, this common type cold virus, so that when they injected this combination of the virus with the cocaine molecule attached to each other, the body developed antibodies. And in fact, by giving this combination, they actually taught the immune system to recognize, which they wouldn't actually happen, the structure of cocaine. So now that when they injected cocaine alone in these immunized mice, the antibodies actually recognized the cocaine as a foreign body, as a virus to attack and engulf. And by attacking and engulfing the cocaine, this molecule becomes very large and is unable to get into the brain, thus preventing it from hijacking the brain reward pathways. And in fact, this virus reduced cocaine brain levels by about 40%, which is quite dramatic.
Currently, there is no cure available to the public to treat addiction, but there are treatment centers available to help addicts wean off the dependency of narcotics. But research towards a cure is looking promising. But in the meantime, remember, don't let drugs trick your reward system.